Thank you for tuning in to For the People News. Today is February 22nd, 2019. I'm your host, Rob. This is episode 1, and the title of this episode is It's Not Venezuela, It's Us. Before we get into the headline of this episode, I want to go over a few things I was reading earlier today. On Thursday, a U.S. district judge ruled that the federal prosecutors violated federal law by signing a plea agreement without informing the victims of Jeffrey Espin. And if everyone remembers correctly, he's the one who supervised an international sex business that involved recruiting underage girls right here in America and also overseas. The bulk of his victims were between the ages of 13 and 16, and not one of them were informed of the plea deal. And that was just so there was no possibility of them rejecting it. There was no other reason for that. And when the victims finally heard about the plea deal, 2 of them filed a lawsuit saying that prosecutors violated the Crimes Victims' Right Act. The Crime Victims' Right Act, CVRA for short, states 8 rights that a victim has that can't be violated. And going through it, there were 3 that were clearly violated. 1, the right not to be excluded from any such public court proceeding. Another one, the right to be reasonably heard at any public proceeding in the district court involving release, pleas, sentencing, or any parole proceedings. And the last one is the right to be treated with fairness and with respect for the victim's dignity and privacy. All 3 of those were clearly violated. Now, obviously, we all know that no one's going to see any repercussions from this. But it just goes to show you that how messed up our legal system is. If you have a position of power, lots of money, you can get away with anything. And it proves it right here. I mean, this man should be in jail for the rest of his life. And yet, he's walking free. Spent 13 months in jail. That's it. 13 months. Anyone else, we would have been there for freaking 20 years. Moving on. Grocery prices are expected to rise by 1 or 2% this year, according to the United States Department of Agriculture, which is kind of bad news, seeing that 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck and are barely able to afford to put food on the table. This is terrible news for us. Some food items, such as pork, eggs, fats, and oils, could also see prices decline during 2019. However, that's not really great news considering that egg prices climbed nearly 11% last year. So they said, hey, we'll raise it, now we'll just put it back to where it was. The price of beef, poultry, fish, and sweets are all expected to increase also. Not just that, but electricity and diesel costs, as well as many other costs associated with food production, such as transport, retail sales. They're all expected to rise, placing upward pressure on prices, which is bad. Fresh vegetable prices increased from November to December, rising 3.4%, and that's 4.6% higher than in December of 2017. So that means not only will our food prices be going up, but so will the cost of electricity and some other utilities. So over in North Carolina, they gotta hold a new 9th congressional district election. The North Carolina State Board of Elections voted unanimously on Thursday to hold a new election in the 9th congressional district, a move that comes hours after Mark Harris, the man at the center of the case, testified, quoting, "I believe a new election should be called," adding that his conclusion is based on the testimony he has heard over the past 4 days. So that's just showing more of the voter fraud that we have here in America. It's not the only one that we've seen. A lot of the special elections and some of the governor elections, we've seen massive voter fraud across the U.S. Broward County, Florida, big for the Senate and governor race. Also out in California, they've been at the center of it for forever, going back to Obama's days. We really need voter ID. But see, the problem with that is there's like 5 states in the United States of America that actually issue driver's license to illegal immigrants. So we have millions of illegal immigrants that have valid U.S. driver's license that are legally allowed to vote because they have an ID. So there's a lot of things that need to be fixed moving forward. And this is for both sides, regardless on what side you're on. Whether you're Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, Green Party, Tea Party, everyone can agree that it would be a good idea to secure our voting rights. But we'll see what goes on in there with that. On to the main topic of this podcast today. Venezuela's oil minister, PDVSA pumping station was attacked. Venezuela's oil minister, Manuel Quevedo, a former general appointed by the president in late 2017 to lead Venezuela's oil industry and the state oil firm PDVSA, has said that a terrorist attack was carried out on a PDVSA pumping station in one of the states over there in Venezuela. I'm not even going to try to butcher that name. Yesterday, he was talking about the president there, but nothing really big. He said that the president called for violence, that President Trump called for violence within Venezuela, and now he's saying now we start to see that violence and terrorist attacks. According to the minister, the right-wing parties in Venezuela were behind the attacks. So he was also stated that because they have no clear political agenda, they resorted to violence, led by the U.S. government. Which, it's really not that hard to believe that. The U.S. has helped many people rise to power in other countries, basically overthrowing the duly elected government. Did it in Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, tried to do it in Syria, didn't work. Trying to do it to Iran, not working. Wanted to go to war with Russia, that was a big one, but that's not going to work. So it's not real hard to see that the U.S. is behind some of this stuff. Now, I'm not saying that's President Trump. It could be. I'm not saying it's not. But remember, the deep state runs deep within the United States government. And a lot of those people, because of the last 30 years of the regulations and rules they put in place, a lot of them don't answer to people. They make their own decisions, and we just have to live with it. So it's going to be real interesting to see how this all ends up playing out towards the end. But we'll see. On Monday, the United States President Donald Trump urged members of the Venezuelan military to abandon their president or lose everything. So now Trump's threatening the Venezuelan military, which it's all tactics. It's all tactics. President Trump also tweeted, I ask every member of the president's regime, end this nightmare of poverty, hunger, and death. Let your people go. Set your country free. Now is the time for all Venezuelan patriots to act together as one united people. Nothing could be better for the future of Venezuela. So now Trump's just egging it on. He's just egging it on. But these are Trump's tactics. He tweets. He gets the members of the deep state all all happy because he's tweeting things like this, and then they start to let their guard down, and that's when the Trump administration will basically attack. But their attack would be, firing, asking for resignations, stuff like that. The United States and many European countries have recognized opposition leader Juan as the interim president of Venezuela. But you can't just do that. You can't just say the duly elected president is no longer the president, and this guy that we want, but the people didn't vote for, he's the president now. I mean, how would we feel if another world power came to the U.S., overthrew our government, and put someone into power that was going to do what they wanted to do? We wouldn't let that fly. But then we get all mad because the people from the country we're in, like in this case Venezuela, we're going to get mad at their people because they're not doing what we want. I mean, we don't live in a democracy, but even if it was, that's not democracy. What makes us any better than terrorists if we're trying to force our way of living on other people? The U.S. is young. We've only been around for 250 years or so. We're the youngest country in this world. So who are we to go around and tell people that have been living in other countries for thousands of years how to live? Doesn't make us any better than what we call terrorists as a country. Also, the U.S. sanctions on Venezuela from late January are expected to speed up the decline of Venezuela's exports, which have been falling over the past 3 years as oil production has been plummeting due to a lack of investment, which, I mean, who could blame them? The government just keeps taking everything. So why would you invest your money somewhere where you're not going to get anything back? You're not even going to make back what you put in. Mismanagement, that goes right back to the government. Government's greedy. The government thinks that it can manage everything better. Here in America, we learned that firsthand. Look at the last 30 years. President's trying to run the country like a business and had no business experience. And then a man like Trump comes in, one of the best businessmen in the world, and he does great, and everybody hates him. That don't make no sense. So why are we going to say it's the president's fault, which it is in Venezuela and his administration, but the person we're putting in, he's no better. So it's just a cycle. It's just a cycle. CBD oil has been studied for its role in treating many common health issues, including anxiety, depression, acne, and heart disease. And for those with cancer, it may even provide a natural alternative for pain and symptom relief. I urge you to check it out. Great products, great prices. Check it out today. Go to myctfo.me/robbest28. Once again, that's myctfo.me/robbest28. Well, I want to thank you for listening to the first episode of For the People News. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.